Let's talk money. More importantly, let's talk oil. Hello and welcome to Business 7. In this week's program, we will focus on the buzz that was created when Shell, Qatar Energies and Namibia recently announced promising results from their oil drilling program offshore Namibia. You don't want to miss this.
While Namibia and its cities are seen as one of the cleanest countries in Africa, plastic pollution is a big problem. Therefore, it's up to each of us to do what we can to reduce the use of plastic, especially single-use plastic bags. At Liberty Life Namibia, we've taken the decision to turn all our old branding items into reusable shopping bags. It's a way in which we can drive sustainability and look after our most important stakeholder, our environment. If you also believe in sustainability and would like more information, please get in touch. Liberty Life Namibia. In it with you.
Before we start, let's look at what international oil experts had to say following the announcement from Shell, Qatar Energy and Namibia. We bring you some quotes from this week's papers. Let's start our discussion by listening to what government has to say about the discovery of oil. Now, earlier this week, the editor of Namibian Sun, Toivin Jabela, spoke to the managing director of Namibia, Emmanuel Mulunga, in our program Evening Review. We bring you the highlights from this program.
Is it, do we have an idea of the value yet? Is it something that can be pursued commercially, or is it another thing like a couple of years ago where somebody there was a bottle filled with something like oil and then it ended there? Or what are the prospects?
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a discovery. I think it's unlike a few years ago when HRT made a non-commercial discovery.
Yeah.
But I think this time we want to take it one step at a time. So we do call it a discovery, meaning there is something substantial there. But we want to take our time to analyze the results of this well and the samples that we've taken in the well. And then after that, we're going to drill a second well very shortly this month, just to actually try and determine the extent of the discovery that we've made.
Yeah.
So we don't want to create unnecessary expectations. We want to take it one step at a time. But I can confirm you, I mean, this is Shell who are the operators, and I don't think Shell will allow us to make an announcement of a discovery if it's not really indeed a discovery.
Indeed. One of the issues, Mr. Mulunga, one of the concerns that have always been raised around projects like that is the stake that the locals would usually have in something like that, and oil is such a huge commodity globally. Are you at liberty to give us some sort of breakdown as to who owns how much percentage, or at this level, what kind of partnership do you have, as a matter of fact?
Okay. I think, Tovana, that's an important question, and I think it's a question that the viewers or readers on social media always like to ask. You know, when they see that Namcor is a 10% stake, they think that is all the value that Namibia has in the project, and obviously that is not correct. The 10% is really just for Namcor as a local partner, a state-owned company. But you know, when you produce oil and gas, you have to consider there's more than Namcor's 10% equity that Namibia will be sort of getting. There are royalties that are paid on production of oil, which is 5%. There's what is called petroleum income tax yielded at 35%. So when you divide up the cake in total, ultimately, government will walk away with anything between 60 to 65%, while not having taken the risk. And the operators obviously will probably walk away with something like 45% or so. So it's not as if we're doing this for the first time. Exploration of oil and gas happens all over the world, and it depends on really how enabling your fiscal environment is to be able to attract these companies. So the companies take a lot of risk. They put in a lot of money. I mean, like this past well cost something like in the region of $70 million US, and there was a 75% chance of them not discovering anything. But we were fortunate enough to discover something. So the equity levels, I think, between government and the private companies are quite even distributed, and I think everybody will be able to make money.
Does Namcor have other licenses with similar prospects? And if yes, will you then go with your current partners into those specific blocks, or would you be open to other players? I think it would be a very weird arrangement working with these two here and then the other 3 or 4 in another block. What are the plans around that?
Yeah, we're actually fortunate enough as a national company to be involved in basically all of the licenses in the country. We had one of the ministers, I think it was Honorable Hintina, when he was Minister of Mines and Energy, who basically made a decision that from now on, whatever license is going to be issued, any exploration license that will be issued going forward, Namcor has to have an interest of 10%. So that has been practiced. So basically, practically in all the licenses, we have either 10% or 15%. In some of them, we obviously have larger equities, but this thing costs a lot of money. So those 10% are what is called carried interest. So we don't really pay for it upfront. We'll pay for it later once a discovery is made. Just significant development is that there's another license close to this one where the discovery has been made in the Orange Basin, where drilling activities are currently happening, and that is the operator there is Total Energies. And again, we have a 10% equity in there, and Qatar Energies also have an interest in that license, and Impact Oil. So that partnership is currently drilling. So that partnership is also getting towards the end of the drilling campaign there. So this month we will also know whether there's a discovery made in that particular license. So
a lot has changed in the past 160 plus years, but the world is evolving faster every day. Founder Samuel Lowell Price's version of a self-driving car was a really smart horse. Who knows how our great-grandchildren will get around? Here at PwC, we know we're responsible for guiding our people, clients, and communities through this constant change. How do we engage the more than 220,000 people across 157 countries in the PwC network? Through a clear and simple purpose, to build trust in society and solve important problems. What that really means is, in between our morning coffees and our evening commutes home, we all live and breathe the same core values. Here they are, the 5 things that make us, us. We act with integrity. We speak up for what's right, even when it's the harder option. We make a difference. We stay informed and proactively look for ways to better our world. We care about each other, about our clients and stakeholders, about empowering everyone to do their best. We work together. We know feedback, collaboration, and diverse perspectives help us deliver the highest quality outcomes. We reimagine the possible. Nothing great ever came from sticking with the status quo. We always challenge ourselves to innovate. Our values make us who we are and will help propel us toward the legacy we've envisioned for the future. A sentiment Sam and his horse would have definitely stood behind.
So now we know what government has to say about the discovery. Let's listen to what the private sector thinks. Earlier this week, Ceres Capital issued an initial report on Graph 1, and we spoke to economist Robert McGregor. Thank you for joining us, Robert McGregor, economist at Ceres Capital. Let's jump right in, Robert. Provided that the discovery at Graph 1 is commercially viable, what are the economics, or what could the economic benefits be to Namibia?
So provided that we do have a commercial find, obviously a lot is down to, the size and the quality. The first thing to bear in mind is that the development does take a long time. Namibia is wildcat frontier country. We don't really have much of the infrastructure in place, and so that will take upwards of 5 years. But in the interim, we'd see substantial net FDI inflows, a lot of that investment coming into the country for the development and also for further exploration activity, and that will be a huge boost to the country in the near term, especially a boost to hard currency reserves. And then once we do have production development, if it does become viable, you start seeing large net export improvements and potentially to the stage where we actually are a substantial net exporter, whereas Namibia is not currently a net importer. Not only do we then see substantial economic growth, some additional employment, but more indirect than direct employment. But it does put Namibia on a completely different growth trajectory. Suddenly, government has a lot of room for spending. In fact, if we do have a commercial discovery now, government can effectively front run that potential future revenue and increase their expenditure now in the short term and drive some growth in that respect. Not necessarily always the best move, but it does provide them with that option. It does change the political outlook substantially, and in fact, if we do see Namibia as a huge net exporter earning substantial foreign currency, it does even put us in a potential position where we may look at the currency peg and decide, do we want to maintain it or do we voluntarily want to change the currency peg?
Oh, lots of interesting thoughts there. And I know it's highly speculative, and everybody's cautioning Namibians not to go crazy, which they are at the moment. But in any case, Ceres brought out a report, and you preliminarily looked at possible revenue that could come from this project if it's commercially viable. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, so it very much depends on the dynamics there. Obviously, on we've been told that it is light oil, which is great. It fetches a premium compared to your heavier oils. Then a lot comes down to the sulfur content and similar. and then also the size of a field, depending on whether, I mean, if it is commercial. So, are we looking at sort of the minimum viability, which was sort of reported at around 250 million barrels? Are we looking at anything specific or much larger than that? But I mean, at sort of the minimum size at current oil prices, we're looking at potential total revenues over a extractable lifetime, sort of equivalent to Namibia's GDP, and that's effectively the starting point. So we do see huge revenues. That's effectively just revenue for whoever's going to be extracting this oil, if it is, again, on this big contingent that it is a commercial discovery. With that in mind, I mean, the tax regime for government is very favorable there as well. So then that would see substantial revenues for government. We look at a corporate tax rate for oil and gas at 35%, which is higher than the 32% for normal corporates, but lower than those for mining companies. But we do also see an additional profit tax. So the higher the project's internal rate of return, the higher additional taxes that are faced. So in fact, at a higher oil price, the project might be slightly less profitable. And then we also see royalties and other payments, concession fees, and so on that will be paid. So huge revenues possible, at least in the Namibian term, maybe not on a global scale, but on a Namibian scale, definitely. And for government, a huge boon in terms of a large revenue source if this does come to pass, and obviously then less reliance on SACU. However, as we've seen with Angola over the last 10 years, that can be very volatile and that can have a huge impact on government's finances. We saw in 2014 with the collapse in the international oil price that the Angolan government had to cut its expenditure by 25%, given their reliance on oil revenues. And that does, if we do go this route, it does put us at risk, obviously, of similar things in the future should we see huge volatility in oil prices.
A few weeks ago, I would never do this on a Saturday morning. Back then, I was standing in line all day. Now it's just like that.
You are using the FNB banking app like I told you.
Girl, it saved my weekend. Now I can do all my banking on this.
Payments, transfers, checking statements.
Even opening accounts.
Just like that.
Oh, did I tell you what my husband
Even
did?
Even me, I want to save time with what's the name of the app?
FNB app.
Don't be left behind. Make the switch to the FNB app, online banking or cell phone banking, and change the way you bank to change your life. FNB, how can we help you?
Namibia's big news when it comes to energy. Last year we had the hydrogen, which literally set the world ablaze. Now we have a Shell, and of course we have the controversial Recon Africa exploration program onshore in Namibia. Where does this place Namibia in terms of international investors and investor sentiment? Robert McGregor tells us. Namibia has been in international news when it comes to energy for quite a while now. We've got hydrogen plans, we've got Recon Africa, whatever controversial that is, and now this announcement. Is Namibia back on the global investment map?
So a lot of this comes down to effectively the natural resources that we possess. And I think the exposure that we get from this is great on an international scale. It's good to be in the international stage for the right reasons. However, I do think there are still lots of improvements that we need to make in terms of our investment climate. The basic things that, the ease of doing business, the procedures, the number of days it takes to start a business and similar, moving a lot of these processes online, making it quicker, but also sort of more general reforms, ease of bringing in skills, work permits and similar. So we do think that there is a lot of work that still needs to be done on that space. And then we talk about a lot of these projects and investments as though they're definitely happening when, the lead time is still many years away. If any benefits do flow, they are still many years away. And we do still see concerning policy being introduced. I mean, if we look at the investment promotion facilitation bill that was tabled and then quickly withdrawn late last year, the direction that these policies take are very concerning. And from an international investment perspective, these could really could be quite a substantial roadblock to any potential developments. If you look at the nature of these policies and sort of the power that they grant to government over the economy and entire sectors.
Robert, thank you very much for your time. Always nice talking to you. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
For joining us in our discussion this week. Remember, we will see you next week at the same time, the same place. We're playing out with some more quotes about the Shell find.